truly live a good life? I mean, what really constitutes happiness? Not just, fleeting pleasure, but that deep, enduring state of flourishing.
It's such a fundamental question, isn't it?
Absolutely. And in a world just overflowing with information, wouldn't it be incredibly valuable to have like a clear guide, an ancient blueprint maybe for ethical living and human flourishing?
Well, that's exactly what some thinkers try to provide.
And that's precisely the profound question we're unpacking today.
Yeah.
Welcome to a deep dive into one of history's most influential thinkers, Aristotle. Specifically, we're looking at his profound and systematic work on ethics.
Yeah, the Nicomachean Ethics mainly.
Right, and this isn't just ancient history, is it? It feels like a practical guide, a way of understanding the human condition that still shapes our understanding of virtue, happiness, even the good society.
Definitely. His ideas have rippled through centuries, still challenging and informing us today, sometimes in really surprising ways. Our mission today, then, is to distill the core wisdom from excerpts of the history of Western philosophy, Aristotle's Ethics, drawing heavily, as you said, from his most renowned work, the Nicomachean Ethics.
Okay.
We'll try to extract the most important nuggets of knowledge and insight, revealing what makes Aristotle's approach unique and how it might still profoundly resonate or maybe fundamentally challenge your modern perspective on what it truly means to live well.
So shortcutting our way to being well-informed.
That's the aim, a solid grounding in these foundational ideas.
Okay, let's unpack this. What a fantastic opportunity to get our heads around such foundational ideas. Let's dive right into laying the groundwork for what Aristotle's ethics are all about, and maybe why they stand apart.
Okay. So Aristotle's ethical views, they aren't just, random philosophical musings. They represent a systematic account of the principles by which they hold that their conduct should be regulated.
A systematic account. Right.
And this work immediately sets itself apart from some earlier philosophical traditions, particularly Plato's.
How so?
Well, our source explicitly states these aren't like Plato's utopian theories regarding property and family. Aristotle offers a more grounded, almost empirical look at how people actually should live within existing social structures.
Ah, so less about designing a perfect fantasy world.
Exactly. Less prescribing an ideal society from a theoretical vacuum and more observing what works or what should work in the real world he knew.
That's a crucial distinction right from the start, isn't it? How does this immediate move away from Plato's utopian ideals fundamentally set the stage for Aristotle's approach?
Well, it suggests he's not building an ethical system for some imaginary perfect state. He's grounding his entire framework in observable human nature and the social structures already present in the Greek polis, the city-state.
Right, the polis. So his ethics aren't just about individual moral development in isolation.
Not at all. It's about how individuals function within that political unit. The source even hints at an ethical system designed for well-behaved citizens and the respectable middle-aged to sort of repress the ardors and enthusiasms of the young.
So is it primarily a guide for maintaining social order, almost a conservative force? Or is it really about achieving individual excellence within that framework? Or maybe both?
That's a very insightful question. I think it highlights a key difference. You see, Plato, in works like The Republic, he really sought to design an ideal state from first principles. Proposed radical ideas, communal property, shared families for the guardians, philosopher kings.
A truly speculative blueprint.
Exactly, a blueprint for societal perfection. Aristotle takes a very different path. He's less interested in building that perfect theoretical society from scratch. He's more focused on observing and understanding the actual principles governing actual human behavior within existing communities.
So to be a more empirical approach.
Deeply empirical. For Aristotle, ethics isn't really a standalone subject. It's fundamentally a subset of politics. The individual's good, or eudaimonia, that flourishing, that true happiness, it simply cannot be separated from the good of the community. Therefore, an ethical system for him naturally includes guidance for well-behaved citizens, because the flourishing of the individual depends, fundamentally, on the flourishing of the polis.
So it's both then, a guide for individual excellence and a framework for maintaining a virtuous social order.
Precisely. With the latter providing the essential context for the former, they're inextricably linked for him.
Okay, so if this is a systematic account for regulating conduct, with the polis firmly in mind, what is the ultimate goal of all this regulation? What's Aristotle's definition of the good that we as individuals and as a community are ultimately aiming for?
For Aristotle, the ultimate aim is quite clear. The good, we are told, is happiness, which is an activity of the soul.
Happiness, an activity of the soul. That's a powerful statement.
It's a cornerstone of his entire philosophy. He builds on Plato's division of the soul, the rational and irrational parts.
Right.
But Aristotle goes further. He subdivides the irrational part. There's a vegetative part, responsible for basic life functions like growth, nourishment, stuff we share even with plants.
Okay.
Then there's the appetitive part, found in all animals. This drives our desires, our emotions, our urges.
Our passions, essentially.
Exactly. Now, what's absolutely crucial for Aristotle, and this is key, is that the appetitive part may be in some degree rational,
Oh, interesting. How so?
when the goods that it seeks are such as reason approves of. This capacity, this potential for reason to guide and shape our appetites, to align our desires with our intellect, that's what he deems essential to the account of virtue.
So it's not about crushing our desires, but training them.
Precisely. It's not about denial, but about elevation, bringing them into harmony with reason.
Happiness is an activity of the soul. That is such a profound and, frankly, challenging statement, especially for our modern ears. It immediately tells us this isn't just about feeling good, in a fleeting way.
Right. It's not just momentary pleasure.
It's about doing good and being good.
Yeah.
In an active, ongoing process, it implies a journey, an engagement, a way of living that cultivates this deep, lasting sense of fulfillment, not just experiencing transient pleasure.
That's a great way to put it.
And what truly strikes me here is how our appetitive part, our desires, emotions, urges, isn't seen as purely irrational or something to be just stamped out.
No, not at all.
Possibility of reason guiding and shaping our appetites. That feels like where our moral agency truly lies. It's about bringing those maybe more primal parts of ourselves into alignment with our rational nature.
Absolutely. That integration is key.
Which, of course, raises the pivotal question. How do we actually train these different parts of ourselves, especially our often impulsive desires? How do we get them to participate in this activity of the soul that leads to true happiness?
Well, that's the core challenge, isn't it? And Aristotle has answers. Consider the stark difference between, say, a fleeting moment of bodily pleasure, maybe from an indulgent meal or some momentary thrill.
Yeah, like scrolling social media or something.
Right. Versus the deep satisfaction you get from mastering a complex skill after years of dedicated practice.
Oh, yeah.
Or the profound contentment that comes from contributing meaningfully to a cause you deeply believe in.
Huge difference.
Aristotle isn't dismissing pleasure. He's elevating our understanding of it. He points us very clearly towards those deeper, more enduring forms of satisfaction.
So like quality over quantity of pleasure.
In a way, yes. Quality and source. For example, desiring food is a basic appetitive urge, right?
Sure.
But choosing what to eat, when to eat, how much to eat, guided by considerations of health or temperance or even social grace, that reflects reason's approval.
I see.
It transforms a basic instinctual urge into a conscious choice. A choice that aligns with a virtuous life. And that alignment itself brings a higher quality of pleasure.
This distinction and the very active idea of training our desires and cultivating a certain quality of pleasure leads us directly, doesn't it, to how we actually cultivate this profound happiness through the virtues.
Exactly. Aristotle identifies two fundamental kinds of virtues. Each corresponds to those parts of the soul we just talked about. Intellectual and moral.
Okay, intellectual and moral.
Intellectual virtues, these are things like wisdom, understanding, practical judgment, what he calls phronesis. These result from teaching.
So learning, study, instruction.
Precisely. Acquired through formal education, mentorship, intellectual engagement. They develop our rational faculty.
Got it. And moral virtues.
Moral virtues, on the other hand, result from habit. He's very explicit and emphatic about this. He states, "It is the business of the legislator to make the citizens good by forming good habits."
The legislator. So society's role is crucial here.
Absolutely. He continues, "We become just by performing just acts, and similarly as regards other virtues." His belief was that, being compelled to acquire good habits, we shall in time come to find pleasure in performing good actions.
Wow. So initially it might feel forced, like a chore.
It might. Doing the right thing might feel difficult, unnatural, maybe even unpleasant at first. But through repetition, through consistency, it becomes easier. Then it becomes natural. And eventually, ideally, it becomes a genuine source of enjoyment.
So what does this all mean for you, listening right now, navigating your own life and trying to be a better person? This is an incredibly practical blueprint for character development. It's far from abstract theory.
Very practical.
It highlights that morality isn't just innate, something you're born with or not. It's cultivated, it's built, strengthened over time. The idea that we can initially be maybe compelled to acquire good habits and eventually find pleasure in them,
Mm,
that's profoundly empowering, isn't it?
it really is. It offers a clear path.
It offers a clear, actionable path for anyone to improve their moral character, regardless of where they start. And what's truly fascinating here is the absolute emphasis on habit. Knowing what's right isn't enough.
Not nearly enough.
You have to do what's right, repeatedly, until it becomes second nature and ultimately an intrinsic source of genuine satisfaction. In connecting this to the bigger picture, it also places a significant, almost civic responsibility on the legislator, which for us today could mean not just governments, but parents, educators, community leaders,
Right. Anyone involved in shaping character.
to guide individuals towards virtue, especially in their formative years. It's a powerful recognition of the environment's crucial role.
It's an enduring insight. Think about learning to play a musical instrument or even a complex sport.
Yeah, the initial struggle is real.
Exactly. Initially, it's hard, maybe frustrating, even unpleasant sometimes, like forcing yourself through monotonous drills or practicing scales over and over. But with consistent practice, through developing those ingrained habits, the movements become natural, fluid. And ultimately, playing becomes this profound source of joy, creativity, self-expression. The skill becomes an extension of yourself.
That's a great analogy.
Similarly, a child might initially be compelled, maybe by a parent or teacher, to share their toys or practice patience when they're frustrated.
Right.
But over time, as they see the positive outcomes, maybe experience the gratitude of others and feel the intrinsic good of generosity or self-control, they find genuine satisfaction and internal motivation in those virtuous actions.
So the external push eventually becomes internal pull.
Exactly. The initial external compulsion gives way to deep internal pleasure. That's the ideal progression.
Okay, with this robust foundation of virtue and the understanding that is built on both intellectual teaching and, crucially, practical habit, we can now explore the practical how-to of Aristotelian virtue, the famous golden mean.
Right. We now arrive at one of Aristotle's most recognized concepts, often cited, sometimes misunderstood, the famous doctrine of the golden mean.
The golden mean. Everyone's heard of it, right?
Pretty much. He states that every virtue is a mean between two extremes, each of which is a vice.
Okay, so virtue is in the middle.
Essentially, yes, but it's not just a philosophical observation. It's intended as a very practical guide for ethical conduct. It means for any given character trait or emotion, the virtuous path lies in finding a balance, a proportionate response, avoiding both an excess and a deficiency.
Too much or too little?
Exactly. Both of those extremes, the too much and the too little, are considered morally wrong or harmful. They're vices.
This concept is so widely known, yet I think it's often oversimplified. People hear golden mean and sometimes think it means being lukewarm, mediocre, always just splitting the difference.
Right, like a bland compromise.
But that's not it at all, is it? It's far from that.
Yeah.
What truly strikes me is that it's about finding the right amount, the appropriate response relative to the specific situation, and crucially, to the individual involved.
Yes, the relativity is key.
It demands keen discernment, practical wisdom, that phronesis again, and significant self-awareness, not just rote application. This implies a dynamic, not rigid, ethical framework where judgment is paramount.
Absolutely. You have to actively assess the context. Both deficiency and excess are equally problematic vices. It's a very active process of assessment and adjustment, almost like an internal calibration, precisely. To illustrate this, imagine something as fundamental as eating.
Okay.
Consuming too little food, that's starvation. A deficiency leading to weakness, ill health.
Right.
Consuming too much, that's gluttony. And excess leading to obesity and related problems.
Got it.
The mean, the virtuous path, is eat 'em healthily, moderately. But, and here's the crucial part, that mean amount isn't a fixed quantity for everyone, is it?
No, definitely not.
It might differ significantly for a small child versus a sedentary office worker versus a professional athlete or someone recovering from an illness. The virtuous mean is relative to us and our individual circumstances.
So it requires judgment, practical wisdom, not just a formula.
Exactly. It's about appropriateness and context, not a universal mathematical point.
That's a powerful and relatable example. It really clarifies the nuance involved. So with that understanding, let's dive into some specific examples that Aristotle himself gives us to really bring this concept to life and see how it applies to different character traits.
Certainly. Aristotle provides a clear framework for many virtues within this structure. First, courage, a cardinal virtue. He identifies it as a mean between cowardice, that's the deficiency, an excess of fear, and rashness, the excess, a deficiency of fear, or maybe just overconfidence.
Okay, cowardice and rashness. Courage is the balance.
Right.
Then liberality,
Uh,
the virtue of generous giving. It finds its mean between prodigality, being wasteful, extravagant, giving too much word to the wrong people, and meanness, being stingy, ungenerous, holding back too much.
They're not a spendthrift, not a miser, generous but wise. Exactly. Then there's proper pride. This one is perhaps one of the most interesting for us today. It's a mean between vanity, that's excessive self-admiration, boastfulness, overestimating one's worth, and undue humility, underestimating or falsely downplaying one's own worth and merits.
Proper pride.
Yeah.
We definitely need to circle back to that one.
We will. Then, ready wit. This is the virtue of social charm, good humor. It's situated between buffoonery, crude, clownish, inappropriate humor that might offend or embarrass, and boorishness, being dull, uncultured, unresponsive, socially awkward.
Ah, the life of the party versus the wallflower versus the offensive clown. Wit is the sweet spot.
You got it. Modesty. This involves appropriate self-respect and awareness of others' opinions. It's the mean between bashfulness, excessive shyness, shrinking from appropriate attention, and shamelessness, a blatant disregard for proper conduct, reputation, or others' feelings. And finally, he mentions truthfulness. Specifically, he frames it as truthfulness about oneself, which is a mean between boastfulness, exaggerating one's achievements, and mock modesty, falsely downplaying genuine merits, maybe to get praise.
These examples are incredibly insightful and, yeah, quite challenging to some of our modern assumptions. Let's definitely zero in on proper pride. Why is that considered a virtue? Especially when so many modern teachings, maybe religious traditions, often emphasize humility above all else. It feels almost provocative.
It's a critical point of divergence, you're right, and often a source of misunderstanding. For Aristotle, proper pride isn't arrogance or ego or self-aggrandizement. It's an accurate and justified self-assessment of one's own worth and merits, grounded in genuinely virtuous actions and character.
So knowing your worth, but genuinely.
Exactly. Having a realistic, healthy, and deserved respect for oneself. Vanity, the excess, is about overestimating yourself, often ridiculously so. But undue or false humility, the deficiency, is equally problematic for Aristotle.
Why is that a problem?
Because it involves underestimating or deliberately downplaying your true capabilities and virtues. It's a form of falsehood, really. So proper pride is about acknowledging your true value, no more, no less, without exaggeration or false deprecation.
Okay, that makes more sense.
Right.
It really raises questions about how we view self-esteem and self-worth today, doesn't it?
It does. And for ready wit, just to clarify, it's about being engaging and amusing in social settings without being crude or offensive, like the buffoon.
Right.
And equally, without being dull or unresponsive, like the bore. It's about social grace, timing, appropriate humor that actually enriches the conversation.
I think I'm grasping the nuance now.
Huh?
For proper pride. Maybe think of a leader who confidently takes responsibility for a tough project. They acknowledge their skills and experience, inspiring trust. That feels like proper pride.
Great example.
It contrasts sharply with someone who boasts incessantly about every little thing, needing constant validation. That's vanity. And then there's the person who constantly downplays their achievements, avoids leadership even when capable, maybe to seem humble, that for Aristotle would be undue humility, a kind of failure to own one's worth.
Exactly. Very different approaches to self-perception and how one presents oneself. Or take that social gathering example again. The person telling crude jokes, dominating with forced, maybe insensitive humor. Buffoonery.
Yep.
The individual offering nothing, sitting silently, disengaged, boorishness.
The wet blanket.
Right. But the virtuous individual, the one with ready wit, they contribute thoughtful, lighthearted, appropriate humor. They make others feel comfortable, engaged, maybe even uplifted. It's about timing, relevance, social intelligence, adding value to the shared experience.
Okay. While the golden mean is clearly a brilliant and practical framework, Aristotle himself, with his characteristic intellectual honesty, knew it wasn't, a perfect one-size-fits-all solution. He openly acknowledges some fascinating limitations and exceptions.
Indeed. Aristotle, to his credit, is far from dogmatic. He admits that some virtues do not seem to fit into this scheme, for instance, truthfulness.
Oh, truthfulness in general.
Yes. He clarifies that the mean structure really only applies to truthfulness about oneself, that boastfulness versus mock modesty thing we mentioned.
Okay.
But then he says, I do not see how truthfulness in any wider sense can be fitted into the scheme. which suggests some moral principles, like honesty in general, might be more absolute or categorical, not really amenable to a too much or too little spectrum.
Interesting.
The source even gives that comical anecdote about the mayor.
Yeah.
Remember, at the end of his term, he made a speech saying that he had endeavored to steer the narrow line between partiality on the one hand and impartiality on the other.
Right. Trying to find a mean between being fair and being unfair.
Exactly. The source concludes that the view of truthfulness as a mean seems scarcely less absurd in that kind of context. And even more profoundly, Aristotle asserts that some actions are just intrinsically wrong. He says, not every action and every passion admits of a mean, for some have names that already imply badness.
Like what?
Such as spite, shamelessness, envy, and among actions, adultery, theft, murder. You simply cannot find a moderate virtuous amount of these things. They are inherently vices.
This is where Aristotle really shows his intellectual honesty, I think. He's not forcing a rigid system onto the messiness of reality. He acknowledges its limits. The mayor trying to find a mean between partiality and impartiality is almost comical, yes, but it highlights the absurdity of applying the golden mean without genuine understanding or wisdom.
It shows it's not a mechanical formula. It requires phronesis, that practical wisdom.
Exactly. And what's truly fascinating is the explicit exclusion of actions like adultery, theft, murder from the golden mean. Why would those actions be inherently wrong? Not just a matter of too much or too little. Does this suggest Aristotle recognized some inherent moral boundaries, universal prohibitions that exist beyond the nuanced, context-dependent application of the mean?
I think it does. It implies a recognition of a baseline of moral conduct that is simply non-negotiable, a set of absolute wrongs. Absolutely. The mayor's example perfectly illustrates a misapplication of the golden mean. It shows it requires genuine wisdom and context, not just mechanical adherence. It's like trying to find a mean amount of poison to consume.
Right. Pointless and dangerous.
Some things are just inherently bad, unequivocally bad. There is no virtuous middle ground. You cannot commit moderate murder and call it virtuous. These are actions that are always vices in his view, and the mean doctrine simply doesn't apply. They mark clear boundaries for ethical conduct.
Okay, so with the practicalities of virtue in mind, including its limitations, let's explore how these virtues interact with society and what Aristotle envisioned as the pinnacle of human excellence within that society.
Right. It's crucial to understand that Aristotle's ethical opinions are always deeply embedded in and reflective of the conventions of his time, ancient Greece.
The context is key.
Absolutely. They differ significantly from modern views, chiefly where some form of aristocracy comes in. For example, we widely believe in equal rights for all and that justice involves equality. Aristotle, however, held a fundamentally different view.
What was his view?
That justice involves not equality, but right proportion, which is only sometimes equality.
Right proportion, okay.
This is a bedrock principle underlying his societal views, a fundamental divergence from contemporary thought. The source clarifies this further, stating, the justice of a master or a father is a different thing from that of a citizen. For a son or slave is property, and there can be no injustice to one's own property.
Wow, that's stark.
It is. A slave, in his framework, is described chillingly as a living tool. And, qua slave then, one cannot be friends with him. Furthermore, a father can repudiate his son if he is wicked. These perspectives are quite stark in their implications for social hierarchy and individual rights, reflecting the realities of his era.
Okay, let's unpack this with the care it requires. This section undeniably shows us how deeply interwoven Aristotle's ethics were with the specific hierarchical societal structures of ancient Greece. The idea that justice is about right proportion rather than universal equality, that's a powerful lens through which to understand his society.
It really is. It directly underpins the social order he observed, and you could argue rationalized.
And what's fascinating here, and quite humbling perhaps, is thinking about how much our own ethical frameworks unconsciously reflect the social and political norms of our time. We are, of course, impartially reporting on this content to convey the ideas in the source material, not endorsing them.
Absolutely, just presenting his views.
But it certainly prompts critical reflection on our own assumptions. The very notion of property extending to a son or a slave is a jarring reminder of how dramatically societal values and our understanding of human dignity can shift over millennia. It really highlights the historical specificity of some ethical views.
Indeed. That description of a slave as a living tool is incredibly stark for our modern sensibilities. It illustrates the vast difference in perspective between Aristotle's era and contemporary understandings of human dignity and fundamental rights.
Yeah.
It underscores how the ethical implications of a statement can be entirely different based on the prevailing social and legal structures of the time. Aristotle wasn't trying to be provocative or cruel in his own context. He was describing and, in a way, rationalizing the world as he saw it and as it functioned in ancient Greece, which included established hierarchies and the institution of slavery.
He saw them as just part of the functional polis.
As natural elements within it, yes.
Okay. So, within this hierarchical framework, Aristotle describes a particular character who, for him, embodies the highest form of virtue, the pinnacle of human excellence, the magnanimous man.
Yes. The magnanimous man, or sometimes translated as the great-souled man, this is Aristotle's ultimate ideal. He states that the magnanimous man, since he deserves most, must be good in the highest degree, for the better man always deserves more, and the best man most.
So he deserves the most because he is the best.
Exactly. This individual possesses proper pride, remember that, meaning he should not underestimate his own merits and, conversely, should despise whoever deserves to be despised for their lack of virtue.
Disguise. That sounds harsh.
It does to our ears, but it reflects his emphasis on valuing virtue above all. He clarifies, though. He is not proud in the sense of being boastful, and not humble in the sense of being unduly humble, but has a proper sense of his own worth.
That balanced self-assessment again?
Right. Magnanimity, in this view, is considered the adornment of the virtues. It seems to encompass and elevate all others, like a crowning glory for a virtuous character.
The ultimate virtue package.
In a way, he does not run into trifling dangers, but for great causes, showing courage tempered with wisdom. He returns good with interest, meaning he repays benefactors with even greater generosity, always wanting to be in the position of superior virtue.
Interesting dynamic there.
And this man does not complain, avoids gossip. He's even characterized by physical attributes: a slow step, a deep voice, and a level utterance, conveying this profound sense of self-possession, gravitas, and inner calm.
This is truly fascinating. This isn't just an ideal, it's Aristotle's blueprint for a fully realized, morally excellent self. It's not just about being good passively. It's about a profound, justified sense of self-worth and an active, confident engagement with the world from a position of strength and virtue.
That's a good summary.
The description of his demeanor, that slow step, deep voice, level utterance, it paints such a vivid picture. A man utterly self-possessed, radiating gravitas, commanding respect without needing to demand it.
Yeah, quiet confidence.
And what truly strikes me here is how magnanimity isn't merely a virtue, but the adornment of the virtues, suggesting it encompasses and elevates all others. It's the ultimate expression of a virtuous character. The specific traits, not complaining, avoiding gossip, paint this picture of quiet confidence and unshakable moral integrity. Which raises an important question for us today. In a society that sometimes conflates confidence with arrogance or loud self-promotion, can we still genuinely appreciate Aristotle's concept of proper pride as a virtue, as a healthy, justified self-esteem rooted in genuine merit, rather than just seeing it as a flaw?
It's a critical distinction that is often lost, I think, or misunderstood in contemporary culture. Imagine someone who commands respect not through bluster or constant self-promotion or that desperate need for external validation, but through calm competence, an unwavering moral compass, a consistent, undeniable demonstration of their own excellence and integrity. Their presence alone speaks volumes. Their actions and demeanor are their testimony.
Actions speak louder than words.
In this case, yes. That's the essence of Aristotle's magnanimous man. He doesn't need to loudly proclaim his worth. He simply embodies it. It's a self-knowledge and self-respect that is earned and justified by his virtue.
So how does this ideal individual, the magnanimous man, interact with and influence the broader society, the political landscape? He clearly isn't just living in isolation on a mountaintop.
No, definitely not. The magnanimous man, by his very nature, does not give way to enthusiasm, but is rather an upholder of the status quo.
An upholder of the status quo, so not a revolutionary.
Not at all. He is a pillar of stability, tradition, established order within the polis. His generosity is a defining trait, but it comes with a particular social dynamic. He asks for nothing or scarcely anything, but to give help readily.
Always the giver, never the taker.
Precisely. His actions firmly reinforce his superior position. He is ready to confer benefits, but he is ashamed of receiving them. For the one is the mark of a superior, the other of an inferior. This really reveals the deep social hierarchy inherent in Aristotle's thought.
Receiving help is shameful because it marks you as inferior.
Wow.
For this ideal man, yes. Furthermore, he is apt to confer greater benefits in return, for thus the original benefactor, besides being repaid, will incur a debt to him, always maintaining that superior position of giver, never truly embedded.
A constant reinforcing of his standing.
Exactly. Now the source draws a sharp contrast here. The best individual, as conceived by Aristotle, is a very different person from the Christian saint.
How so?
Well, it notes that Aristotle's magnanimity, this focus on deserved pride and superiority, led Nietzsche to regard Christianity as a slave morality due to its emphasis on humility and self-effacement.
Ah, Nietzsche's critique. Yes. It's also acknowledged that there cannot be very many of him, the magnanimous man, in a community, implying this is an aspirational ideal for a select few, an elite of virtue, not something everyone can or should achieve.
So what does this all mean for understanding ancient Greek values and leadership? The magnanimous man is fundamentally a giver, never a receiver, firmly rooted in a social hierarchy and seemingly content with that structure. This is a powerful insight into ancient Greek values and the expected role of the elite in maintaining social order.
It really is.
And what's truly fascinating here is that direct comparison to Christian ethics and Nietzsche's subsequent critique. The contrast between Aristotle's proper pride and Christian humility, that's a fundamental divergence in Western thought that has fueled centuries of philosophical debate.
A major fault line.
It's not about judging which is better in some absolute sense, but understanding the profound philosophical and cultural differences at play. And it raises an important question for us looking back. Does a society truly flourish if its highest ideals are only attainable by a select few? And if receiving help or showing humility is perceived as a mark of inferiority? These aren't questions Aristotle directly posed in this text, but they naturally arise when we consider his framework through our contemporary lens.
Indeed. Compare the image of a magnanimous leader quietly funding public works, inspiring through example, embodying calm, unshakable self-worth, representing that ancient Greek ideal of excellence,
Right.
versus a humble, self-sacrificing Christian saint who actively seeks to serve others, embraces humility, prioritizes the meek.
Two very different models of goodness.
Profoundly different ideals of human excellence and moral conduct. One emphasizes self-respect and superior virtue within a clear social structure. The other emphasizes self-effacement and universal love. It's a powerful illustration of how moral frameworks aren't monolithic. They're shaped by foundational cultural and philosophical assumptions.
Okay. This ideal of the magnanimous individual pursuing virtue within a defined social structure naturally leads us to Aristotle's ultimate pursuit, the nature of happiness itself and its companions, pleasure, and friendship.
Right. Aristotle dedicates a considerable portion of his ethics to a deep and quite nuanced discussion of pleasure, which is absolutely crucial for understanding his view of ultimate happiness or eudaimonia.
So pleasure is important, but maybe not in the way we first think.
Exactly. He acknowledges that pleasure is good, but not the highest good. He carefully examines and critiques various philosophical views on pleasure. He rejects, for example, the idea that it's never good. His logic is simple. If pain is bad, its opposite, pleasure, must therefore be good in some sense.
Makes sense.
However, he also firmly rejects the hedonistic idea that all pleasure is the highest good, or that pleasure itself is the good. He draws important distinctions between bodily pleasures, those sensory experiences tied to our physical being, the ones we share with animals, and higher pleasures.
Higher pleasures. Like what?
Those associated with intellectual or virtuous activities. He notes, interestingly, that good men have pleasure unless they're unfortunate, and God always enjoys a single and simple pleasure.
God enjoys a single, simple pleasure. What does that imply?
It subtly hints at the superior, enduring quality of certain pleasures, particularly those associated with pure contemplation, unchanging, pure, untroubled. Ultimately, for Aristotle, pleasures differ in kind. Those resulting from good, virtuous activities are inherently superior.
So the pleasure you get from, say, solving a math problem is better than the pleasure from eating cake.
According to Aristotle, yes, in terms of quality and its connection to our highest function. He concludes that happiness lies in virtuous activity, not in pleasure itself as an end. But pleasure often accompanies virtuous activity as a natural, healthy byproduct.
Like a bonus, or a sign you're doing it right.
More like the crown on top of the good life, maybe? It signals flourishing, but it's not the good life itself.
This is where the nuance of Aristotle's thought really shines. He gives us such a sophisticated view of pleasure, far from a simple dismissal. It's acknowledged as a good, a necessary component maybe of a complete life, but critically, not the ultimate good,
Precisely. Not an end in itself.
but rather a companion, a natural flourishing that accompanies the good life. And what's truly fascinating here is how he introduces this clear hierarchy of experiences and pleasures. The idea that God always enjoys a single and simple pleasure. That's a profound insight. It hints at the contemplative life as the highest form of satisfaction, a pleasure that's constant, pure, untroubled by change or excess, reflecting ultimate fulfillment.
It points towards that intellectual ideal.
Which raises an important question for us today. How do you, in your own life, differentiate between those fleeting bodily pleasures that bring momentary gratification and the more enduring, higher forms of satisfaction? The ones that stem from virtuous activity, intellectual engagement, or meaningful contribution. It's a distinction that could profoundly shape your pursuit of genuine fulfillment, help you prioritize your energies.
That distinction is incredibly powerful. Think of the immediate, intense gratification of, say, a sugary treat or a fleeting moment of trivial gossip.
Yeah, the quick fixes.
Versus the sustained contentment you feel after solving a complex intellectual problem, or diligently learning a new skill over time, or maybe creating something truly beautiful and enduring.
Worlds apart.
Both experiences involve pleasure, absolutely, but they are profoundly different in quality, duration, and their lasting impact on your sense of self, your character, your overall well-being. Aristotle is clearly pointing us toward those deeper, more meaningful forms of pleasure that accompany and are indeed a sign of virtuous living and intellectual engagement.
Okay, so if pleasure isn't the highest good, then what is the supreme form of happiness, that ultimate flourishing, according to Aristotle?
For Aristotle, the pinnacle of human existence, the highest form of happiness, it is true, is only open to the philosopher.
Only the philosopher. That sounds a bit elitist.
But to Aristotle, that is no objection to the theory. It's a significant and perhaps challenging point for us. He defines human good as activity of soul in accordance with virtue in a complete life.
Activity of soul in accordance with virtue.
Yes. And the supreme happiness is in the exercise of reason, for reason more than anything else is man.
Reason is our defining characteristic.
He argues quite forcefully that contemplation is preferable to war or politics or any other practical career because it allows leisure, and leisure is essential to happiness.
Leisure, meaning just relaxing.
Not leisure as idleness. Leisure as school and Greek freedom from the demands of practical necessity, freedom to think and contemplate. While he acknowledges that man cannot be wholly contemplative, we have bodies, practical needs, insofar as he is contemplative, he shares in the divine life.
Shares in the divine life. Wow.
Therefore, the philosopher is the most godlike in his activity and therefore the happiest and best. Practical virtue, while absolutely necessary and good for communal life, brings only a secondary kind of happiness compared to the pure intellectual activity of contemplation.
So, what does this rather elevated ideal of happiness mean for you in a practical sense? It means that, for Aristotle, the ultimate human flourishing lies in fully engaging our highest faculty, reason. It's not just about doing good in the world, though that's essential for a complete life.
All right, practical virtue is necessary.
But it's about thinking deeply, pursuing understanding for its own sake, engaging in profound intellectual activity. And what's truly fascinating here is the emphasis on leisure as essential. This isn't laziness. It's freedom from the constant demands of practical necessities and worldly distractions, specifically to pursue intellectual and contemplative endeavors.
Creating the space for thought.
Exactly. Intentionally creating space for profound thought, reflection, the pursuit of knowledge. Which raises an important question for us in our fast-paced, always-on world. Do we sufficiently value and intentionally create space for the contemplative activities that Aristotle deemed the highest form of happiness? It fundamentally challenges our modern obsession with constant doing over being and thinking.
It truly does. Compare the hectic, demanding life of a highly successful executive, constantly making decisions, navigating the practical world, maybe exemplifying many practical virtues like courage, temperance, justice.
Yeah, the high achiever.
With the serene, dedicated life of a scholar or philosopher deeply immersed in fundamental questions, pursuing pure understanding without immediate practical application.
The thinker.
Both lives are valuable, even admirable. But Aristotle gives a clear hierarchy to their ultimate happiness. He places the contemplative life at the apex. He sees it as the path that most fully engages our unique human capacity for reason, making us, in a sense, godlike. It's a powerful call to prioritize intellectual development.
While the philosopher's life, dedicated to contemplation, might be the apex of happiness, Aristotle certainly didn't believe we live in isolation. Human connection, specifically friendship, plays an absolutely vital role in the good life, even for the philosopher.
Absolutely. A considerable part of the ethics is occupied with the discussion of friendship, including all relations that involve affection. He identifies three distinct types of friendship, each with its own characteristics and level of depth.
Okay, three types.
First, those based on utility, where friends are useful to each other, serving some practical purpose. Think colleagues, maybe business partners.
Okay, useful friends.
Second, those based on pleasure, where friends find enjoyment in each other's company, seeking shared experiences, fun, lightheartedness, maybe activity partners, people you hang out with.
Fun friends. Got it.
And third, crucially, those based on virtue, where friends appreciate each other's good character and virtuous qualities. Virtue-based friendship is the best, most lasting, Aristotle says.
Why is that the best?
Because it's rooted in something stable, admirable, and enduring mutual respect for cultivated moral excellence. It's about loving the friend for who they are, for their goodness. However, he also notes significant limitations. He states, friendship is only possible between the good.
Only between good people.
In this highest sense, yes. And it is impossible to be friends with many people in this deep, virtue-based way due to the intensity and commitment required.
Quality over quantity again.
Definitely. He also held, reflecting his time, that one should not be friends with a person of higher station than one's own unless he is also of higher virtue, reinforcing those societal hierarchies in his proportional view of justice.
Interesting condition there.
Finally, he states that a good man should love himself, but nobly, which means love yourself for the best state of mind and most dear to the gods.
Love yourself nobly. What does that mean?
It's not narcissism. It's a healthy, virtuous self-love, a self-respect that motivates one to cultivate excellence in oneself. It's about valuing your own potential for virtue.
This is profoundly insightful. Friendship isn't just a nice to have. It's presented as essential for the good life, a fundamental component of flourishing. But Aristotle's views are quite specific and, again, very much tied to his social context and his ethics of virtue.
Yes, context is always there.
What's truly fascinating here is how, even in personal relationships, the pursuit of virtue is paramount. Virtue-based friendship, rooted in mutual appreciation of character, is clearly presented as the most stable, fulfilling, and ultimately the only true form of friendship in the deepest sense.
That's his ideal.
Which raises an important question for us. Does that idea that one should not be friends with a person of higher station unless they possess higher virtues still echo, maybe subtly, in unspoken social rules or expectations today? Perhaps in professional networking or even within certain exclusive social circles where perceived virtue or status is a prerequisite for deeper connection, even if unstated.
It's an interesting thought. Status and virtue can get complicated.
And what does it truly mean to love yourself, but nobly? It's clearly not self-absorption. It sounds more like self-respect and self-cultivation, aligning yourself with the highest ideals in your own virtuous development.
That's an excellent point about contemporary echoes. And think of your own relationships. You likely have casual acquaintances you enjoy spending time with, pleasure-based friendships.
Sure.
Work colleagues you collaborate with effectively on shared goals, utility-based friendships.
Yeah.
And then, hopefully, those deep, enduring friendships where you genuinely inspire each other to be better people. You challenge and support each other's virtuous development. That's virtue-based friendship.
The gold standard.
Aristotle is telling us that while the first two have their place and value, the third is where true, lasting connection, mutual growth, and the most profound form of human affection are found. And loving yourself nobly is indeed about valuing your own character, striving for excellence, maintaining your integrity, cultivating your best self. Not about unhealthy ego. It's almost a prerequisite for truly loving others well.
Okay, we've taken a deep dive into Aristotle's ideas on ethics, happiness, social roles, virtue. Now let's explore their enduring legacy and how they continue to challenge us today.
Right. The relationship of ethics to politics raises another crucial ethical question for Aristotle, one that deeply structures his thought. For him, the aim is the good community rather than the good individual.
The community comes first.
If possible, that the good community may be one in which there is subordination. This is really central to understanding his entire system. He famously uses the analogy of an orchestra.
The orchestra analogy.
Yes. In an orchestra, the first violin is more important than the oboe, though both are necessary for the excellence of the whole.
Different roles, different importance, but all needed.
Exactly. This perspective, ethics transitioning seamlessly into politics, suggests a broader belief in final causes, that idea that everything has a telos, an ultimate purpose or end goal,
Everything has a purpose.
and that purpose governs the course of development in the universe. He believed virtuous actions favor this tendency towards increased organization or form in both individuals and society. This leads to the fundamental question Aristotle grapples with: is the good of the whole community something belonging essentially to the whole, not to the parts?
Is the whole greater than the sum of its parts, ethically speaking?
In a way, yes. Is the flourishing of the individual primarily for the sake of the collective, and how do those two levels of good interact?
So what does this all mean for you in terms of how you view society and your place within it? Aristotle clearly views ethics and politics as inseparable. Two sides of the same coin, almost. The individual's good, while vitally important, is ultimately deeply intertwined with, and sometimes even subservient to, the community's good.
That link is fundamental for him.
And what's truly fascinating here is the orchestra analogy. It's such a powerful way to understand his view on hierarchy. Different roles, different levels of importance, but all absolutely essential, all contributing to the harmonious whole. It's not about everyone being equal in function, but everyone playing their specific part perfectly for the overall excellence.
Very organic view of society.
And this holistic teleological view, this idea that everything has an inherent purpose it's striving towards, that isn't just a side note, is it? How does this idea of final causes, of telos, fundamentally underpin his entire ethical system, from individual virtue right up to the structure of the polis?
That teleological framework is absolutely fundamental. For Aristotle, everything in nature, including humans, strives to fulfill its inherent potential, its telos. The telos of a human being is to live a life of reason, engaging in virtuous activity, which leads to eudaimonia, flourishing.
Okay.
And since humans are by nature social and political animals, our telos can only be fully realized within a functioning polis.
Can't do it alone.
Right. So the good of the individual is intrinsically linked to the good of the community, which provides the necessary framework for individual virtue. The first violin is more prominent, yes, but without the oboe and every other instrument playing its part correctly, the symphony is incomplete. It loses its excellence. It's a dynamic of mutual dependence for the sake of a greater shared good.
Which really contrasts with purely individualistic approaches to ethics and politics today.
Sharply.
Okay. So with this holistic view of the individual and society, how does Aristotle's ethical system stack up against other major philosophical and religious traditions that emerged after him, especially those that came to dominate Western thought?
The source draws some clear and insightful comparisons, highlighting profound points of divergence. First, Christianity. The state Christian view requires a conception of virtue very different from Aristotle's. Fundamentally, it holds that virtue is as possible for the slave as for his master, a direct contrast to Aristotle's hierarchical view where slaves were property and true friendship wasn't possible.
A radical difference in equality.
Absolutely. Christian ethics also disapproves of pride, which Aristotle thinks a virtue, and praises humility, which he thinks a vice. We touched on that. It also sharpens the distinction between moral and other merits. So being a great artist or a brilliant strategist isn't considered a moral merit for Christians in the same way it might contribute to Aristotle's broader conception of human excellence.
Different criteria for goodness.
Yes. Then Nietzsche. The source specifically states Nietzsche was justified in regarding Christianity as a slave morality when contrasting it with Aristotle's magnanimous man.
From Nietzsche's perspective.
From Nietzsche's perspective, yes. He saw Christian values as a reversal of those ancient, heroic, aristocratic ideals found in figures like Aristotle's great-souled man. He preferred the strength and self-affirmation of the magnanimous man over Christian humility and self-sacrifice. And Kant. The source implies a significant contrast by noting Aristotle's practical ethics is not particularly philosophical, but merely the result of observation.
Ouch. Not philosophical enough for Kant.
Well, it stands in opposition to Immanuel Kant's emphasis on universal moral duties and the goodwill for its own sake. Kant derived these from pure reason, not observed behavior or a teleological pursuit of happiness.
Duty versus happiness is the driver.
Right. Kant would ask, what should I do? Based on universal rules, the categorical imperative. Aristotle asks, what kind of person should I be to achieve happiness? Based on cultivating character and virtue. The source also briefly contrasts utilitarians who interpret justice as equality with Aristotle's proportional justice, where what's just depends on merit and appropriateness to one's station.
What's truly fascinating here is that these aren't just, academic comparisons for a philosophy class. They highlight fundamental shifts in how Western thought has defined good and what constitutes a virtuous life. What really stands out is that stark opposition between Aristotle's proper pride and Christian humility, and how that divergence fueled Nietzsche's provocative critique.
It shows how deep these value differences run.
It showcases how deep-seated cultural and philosophical values can shape entire ethical systems, leading to vastly different prescriptions for how to live well. Which raises an important question for us. When ethical systems prioritize such fundamentally different core virtues, like pride versus humility or happiness as the goal versus duty for duty's sake, what are the broader societal implications? How do these differing foundations manifest in different cultures or historical periods? In governance, social expectations, individual aspirations?
It's a powerful illustration of the non-monolithic nature of morality, isn't it? Consider how different cultures might celebrate a warrior's noble pride and self-assertion, reflecting perhaps an Aristotelian ideal of excellence,
Right.
versus a saint's self-effacing service and profound humility, reflecting a Christian ideal. Both are considered virtues within their respective frameworks, but the emphasis reveals vastly different underlying values about human nature, social roles, the ultimate purpose of life.
It's like a philosophical fork in the road.
Exactly. That fork between character-based virtue ethics, like Aristotle's, duty-based ethics, Kant, and consequence-based ethics, utilitarianism, continues to shape debates in moral philosophy today. Aristotle's empirical, teleological approach stands as a powerful counterpoint, grounding ethics in the observed reality of human flourishing within a specific communal context.
Okay, so after this incredible journey through Aristotle's ethical landscape, what can you, our listener, truly take away from this deep dive? What ancient wisdom here is relevant to your life and decision-making today?
Well, this entire deep dive is predicated on the idea that knowledge is most valuable when understood and applied. So here are some key practical takeaways and reflections, perhaps.
So how might these profound ideas from Aristotle genuinely resonate with you in your daily life? First, the power of habit and character. Aristotle's emphasis on moral virtues resulting from habit. It reminds us that character isn't some fixed destiny. It's actively cultivated through repeated actions.
It's something you build.
Exactly, which invites us to consider, how can you intentionally practice good actions, like patience, honesty, generosity, courage? Practice them until they become not just easier, but genuinely pleasurable and second nature. It's about consistent, deliberate practice of virtue, seeing yourself as a work in progress. Second, finding your mean in the everyday. The golden mean offers a truly practical, dynamic tool for navigating choices and emotions, far beyond a rigid rule.
It requires self-awareness.
Right. Aristotle encourages us to honestly self-assess. Are you prone to excess or deficiency in certain areas of your life? Maybe too rash or too cowardly in decisions, too prodigal with your time or too stingy with attention, too boisterous or too reclusive? How can you apply this framework to find that appropriate balance in your work, relationships, personal habits, even your emotional responses?
It requires that practical wisdom for access.
Exactly. Third, rethinking happiness as flourishing. Aristotle fundamentally challenges us to view happiness not as just a fleeting emotion or a passive state, but as an activity of the soul aligned with virtue, especially intellectual virtue.
Eudaimonia.
Which prompts us to ask, how might focusing on engaging in virtuous activity, including intellectual pursuits, continuous learning, deep thought, lead to a more profound and lasting fulfillment in your life? Beyond just chasing transient pleasures, it's about seeking excellence in what you do. And fourth, critical self-reflection on societal norms. Examining Aristotle's historically bound views like on hierarchy, justice as proportionality, his acceptance of slavery, it serves as a powerful reminder to critically examine our own societal assumptions.
It's a very important point.
What are the conventional opinions of our day that we just take for granted, but which might be ethical blind spots when viewed through different historical, philosophical, or cultural lens? It encourages us to constantly question and refine our own moral frameworks.
Consider a challenging decision you faced recently. Could applying the golden mean have provided a clearer path, helped you avoid extremes, and find a more balanced, virtuous action that felt right for that specific situation?
Good question.
Or reflect on your daily routines. How could a conscious focus on virtuous activity, whether it's learning something new, creating something meaningful, engaging deeply and ethically with others, how could that reshape your sense of purpose and lead to a greater, more profound sense of happiness and flourishing?
This deep dive into Aristotle's ethics offers so much to ponder. We've explored the foundations of his systematic account, the practical wisdom of the golden mean, the aspirational ideal of the magnanimous man, and his nuanced views on happiness, pleasure, and the profound importance of friendship. It's clear his insights are both timeless in their wisdom and simultaneously deeply rooted in his historical context, offering enduring lessons and really thought-provoking contrasts with later philosophies that have shaped our world. Let's leave you with a final thought to mull over as you go about your day. Hashtag outro. We've journeyed through Aristotle's systematic account of ethics, from the pursuit of happiness as virtuous activity and the practical wisdom of the golden mean, to the ideal of the magnanimous man and the profound importance of friendship. We've seen how his insights are both timeless and deeply rooted in his historical context, offering enduring lessons and thought-provoking contrasts with later philosophies that have defined Western thought.
As we wrap up this deep dive, it's maybe worth reflecting on one particular aspect of Aristotle's ethics. While it provided a robust framework for individual excellence and community good within the polis, it largely lacked, you could argue, a concept of universal benevolence. Or maybe a deep emotional response to widespread suffering that extended much beyond one's immediate circle of friends and fellow citizens.
His focus was more local, more on his own community.
It seems so. He certainly understood evil intellectually, but the sources suggest it didn't necessarily cause him personal unhappiness unless it directly affected those he valued, or his polis. Which raises an important question for you, living in our incredibly interconnected modern world. Can a truly good life, in our contemporary understanding of ethical responsibility, ever be fully realized without a foundational sense of empathy, a commitment to justice that extends to all people, regardless of their station, personal connection, or geographic proximity?
That's a powerful question.
How do we balance the Aristotelian pursuit of individual excellence and personal happiness with a potentially global responsibility for the collective good, especially when the suffering of others may not directly impact our immediate well-being or our social circle? It's a tension, I think, that continues to challenge us today.